Wow.
Wow, this is some really deep stuff.
I don't know what just happened, but something happened inside of me. Something snapped, something clicked.
I wasn't expecting that either.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's all right. It's beautiful.
Monster is like really small, but it had to become that to stop me.
And then the hurt child became present when you mentioned it.
And I didn't realize this until now.
There were things that I didn't remember until now.
Funny, I haven't seen that before.
It feels like I'm the monster. I'm kind of seeing images of things, of a world where they can exist. This clarity brings all kinds of answers.
It's clear. She hugged me and then went back to her place, I guess, in my heart. Oh, it wants to come out. It wants to bippity boppity boop Cinderella me. She's melted into my chest. It's ooey gooey.
All week been finishing things, cleaning up more, started eating vegetables again last week. And it kind of just started happening. It's almost like I just finished going through a meditation session.
I feel light. When you hit that first joint, in the morning, and you...
I actually feel a lot more awake.
So I have to ask, you're renovating a house there?
Yes, a house that I rent. One of my rentals here that I was trying to turn into a business as a homestay, Airbnb kind of place, but it just needed some work.
Uh-huh. So you purchase property to rent out? Is that what the business is?
No, I'm renting property to rent out, but
whoa,
it's kind of just an experiment.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very creative.
Yeah, I don't know. I think one of the reasons it's not working so well is probably because it's not creative. It's kind of seems like everybody here is doing that, and so I don't know that there's much of a market for it or anything.
Uh-huh. Is it not hard to renovate when you don't speak the language?
It's hard, but I know how to work on homes, and so as long as I can get some help getting materials together, I can do that.
Uh-huh. So you're very self-sufficient with your skills. I get it.
I guess. I mean, none of it's at a very professional level, but it's all good enough. Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, interesting.
All right.
Okay. So I think I know we've discussed that a lot. I'm discovering kind of emotions, and that these emotions have names, and these emotions are actually kind of coming from parts.
Yep.
And this is definitely a process. It's happening all the time. It's like great inner discovery. Mm-hmm. Oh, there are emotions in there.
Mm-hmm.
And what came up in this silence was a recent experience where I was allowing emotion to come up,
mm-hmm.
and just sitting with it, just, kind of acknowledging it and relaxing into it. And I realized there's this perpetual dullness, and I know it's a part, I'm pretty sure it's a part that kind of forms this protective dullness when emotions start to come up.
Yeah.
And it's also related to that part that pulls back on the reins. So it's this all around safety. Obviously, some deep-seated place that feels very unsafe with emotions and has this part, this dullness, this dimming or dulling is an ever present. It's almost like a boundary. So it's as if it stops the embodied being, like the part that pulls on the reins, or the analytic part who has to analyze everything to make sure it's, up to snuff. All these collectively, but in particular, this part plays a very large role of kind of dulling and protecting.
Yeah.
And it's starting with my ability to now start to allow emotion and to recognize parts that have these emotions and have been there but have not experienced. This part seems to be popping up a bit more. And I notice when it comes up, I feel frustrated by it.
Yeah.
Because it's just so inherently part of the system. It's baked. It's really, really baked in. And yet there's other parts that the self mainly, and then other parts who are trying to work and experience and explore. And the heaviness of the dullness doesn't fully allow for it.
Right. Okay. So there's emotions in there. You're wanting to allow them to come up and to relax into them. Dullness comes up as a response, pulls back on the reins, and sets the boundary. And then there's also some frustration that comes up as a response to the dullness, because of its just ever presence. And yeah, does that all sound like I'm hearing you right?
You heard me exactly correctly.
Okay.
And I used to have a part, and I don't know if we've discussed it. I had a part that I used to call kind of like the glass dome or the glass bubble. I don't know if we've ever discussed this.
I'm not recalling that.
Okay. And this feels analogous to it, maybe twinned to it, maybe actually the same part, just expressing maybe slightly differently in different circumstances. And so that the reason I think it's analogous, or in fact, maybe even the same part, is I've always had this sensation as an embodied being that not the glass ceiling, it's not just a glass ceiling that I can't go up, which is the most common colloquial use. It's actually a glass dome around me. Keeps things protected, small, and the world on the other side of it.
Okay.
The bigger life, the richer life, the more vibrant. And so I think these are analogous, or even the same.
Yep. And, I'm also hearing some parallels to parts we talked about before in previous conversations. There was the kind of a fisher's net that also did some restraining. You've also talked about the oyster shell, which had its own protective role.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because that kind of lays out a bit of a picture for me. That there are a number of parts that are providing kind of safety and protection. And maybe their overall interaction is in fact the glass dome, where you can see out, but you're not fully interacting with the world. But clearly there's some movement within me towards these very, very strong protectors in different forms.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was helpful that you brought those up. I can see the similarities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It makes sense to have frustration about that. If it feels like those are keeping other parts from being able to express themselves or from a connection with self.
I don't know if it's a part or if it's self. Sometimes, things are so blended, it's not fully clear, but I want to say it's self has this yearning to just be able to be and not have all these caveats and restrictions and complications and entanglements around it.
Mm-hmm. There was a question that I was going to ask is when you mentioned, for example, allowing emotions to kind of come up and relaxing into it, does it feel like that is in a place of self? Is self present in that process, making space for those emotions?
Yeah, it's a very grounded feeling. It's a very, it's okay. I can cope with whatever the emotion is. Come on, let's feel it. So I think it is mainly self that provides this kind of, which I never had access to before, this kind of, it's all fine. It's no problem. These emotions are actually fine. They're not going to overwhelm you. They're not going to take you places you don't want to go. We're fine. We're perfectly. Yeah. So I would describe that as self.
Okay.
Now, whether that's actually blended with some parts, it hasn't become utterly clear, but it feels like self.
Okay.
Although I have to say, Sally felt like that a lot in over the years. You can do it. You're going to do this. We'll manage it. Let's get on with it.
Yeah.
But she was far more controlling and closed than how I feel in these circumstances when the emotions are coming up.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's not a direct answer. It was a long answer.
Oh, it's good. It's all very nuanced, and appreciate your details. So, and I was asking because the dullness that comes up as a response, I can imagine if it doesn't see or trust that there's any self-presence, then if it's just let's let our guard down and have these perhaps exile feelings pop up because, hey, it's fine, I can handle it, then it would make sense to me why protective parts like dullness would be more, eager to pop up in response. Whereas if there was a strong connection with self, whether that's self and those emotions coming up or self and that dull part, that might provide more of a container or kind of a guarantee that the dullness might be more willing to trust. So that's why I was trying to assess that.
I'm not sure there's a connection between dullness and self.
Right.
I think, and maybe I just need to go into the dullness and speak with it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's actually where I should go next. So
Okay. Ask for space from the frustrated parts.
Okay, they've kind of stepped back a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And approaching dullness
And what are your feelings towards dullness in the moment?
a little bit of wonder.
Okay.
Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
know you, but I don't know you. That kind of.
Yeah. I think it's a great message to send it. I know this about you. I know how this feels and when you come up in this regard, but what else do you want me to know?
It's simply, and sometimes it's so wonderful how simply parts can speak.
Mm-hmm.
It saying to me quite simply, you have a long early experience void of safety. I am your safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel very warm towards that.
Great. Yeah. So you can show it appreciation for that. Let it know that that makes sense.
It's funny, it's saying I feel the frustration.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry you feel frustration. I don't mean to necessarily, that's not my purpose.
It's another part.
Yeah.
You just let it know you're aware of that other part. And you are able to make space from it and meet with this part solo.
And it's saying it's tentative.
Mm-hmm.
It's been fully engaged forever, as long as it's embodied. It does not rest. It's a 24/7 proposition for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It says quite obviously its role is to capture the embodied experiences and make them manageable.
Right.
That's what it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thanking it because it's quite expert at it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a self is saying, I know I don't need it, but boy, it is really a handy thing. Like it's performed amazing feats. Like
Right. Yeah. And I bet if you were to stay with this part and to learn more about it, or I'm sure it could give you examples of times when self wasn't there and you did need it. You know, like it's
saying so often self wasn't there.
Right.
And I was the scaffolding that kept everything from spinning out, from falling down.
Yeah.
And I see that. I'm feeling just heaps of gratitude, like just welling up in me, like actually warming me. I feel warmed by the gratitude towards this part, because it has been such a primal player in my ability to function.
Mm. Does the part feel like you have a good understanding of what it means by spinning out and falling down? Or does it have more it wants to show you about what it's worried about happening if it didn't work so hard?
Yeah, it feels I understand it, and it's saying to me, it has this very simple communication, which is quite endearing. It's saying you wouldn't have been able to cope.
Mm-hmm.
the world was too loud, it was too active and overwhelming. And I made sure you got the right sized bite always. And I'm saying I recognize that. Like, it's kept me safe. It literally, like, I feel it. I myself really understands with clarity how important this part's role has been in keeping me on my embodied path. And what self is now saying to it with great gratitude is that I understand completely. Like, I can see it. I can, like, all the examples are very clear.
Okay. Yeah.
But there's a trade-off for that. And that I'm here now, and that I can keep, everybody safe.
Yeah. How does it respond to that when you?
It acknowledges. It has no problem acknowledging that its role was so vital when self was not evident, and that it's glad self is emerging and it feels self. But it's so habituated to creating safety that it's saying, I don't know that I can just release.
Okay. And how old does it think that you are?
Very young.
Okay.
So self is saying, I respect all your efforts and your feelings around safety and generating safety and the way that you do it. But I am not only present, present as a person who's lived a lot more years than you're reacting to.
Right.
And it's okay with that. It hears it. And self is kind of reassuring it that it's just, self doesn't need that. Self can provide that in very different ways that are just as effective, or even maybe more effective.
Yes. Does it have any more that it wants to show you about the little one that it thought that you were?
It's referring back to the little one exile and being stuck under the bed. And it's giving me images from how the little one coped, and not just in a physical sense, like hiding under the bed, but how this part deadened the chaos, lowered the volume, and created a safe boundary. And it was a real great, it was a means to survival, which is what it's saying. And I'm acknowledging, because I know that's true. I'm asking, is there anything that I, as self, have yet to understand about this exile? And it's saying to me that these expressing emotions are all rooted in that exile. That That's where they, in a cognitive sense, because it's in a time frame that I can cognitively remember, it's the point that they were locked within.
Yeah. And so when you're sitting down and wanting to allow some emotions to come up and relax into them, that gets the attention of this part in the same way that it did.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying to it, I so respect that self can see that and self respects that. And asking it, can you see where I'm at now in my own embodied journey, that I'm not a small exile? And it acknowledges that.
Yeah. So what does it need from you going forward, or in your, to let you go forward? If you're wanting to get in touch with other parts or exiles or whatever else, what does this one need from you in order to relax and trust you with that?
Saying it needs demonstration of self.
Okay.
Consistent demonstration of self.
Okay.
It's saying it's happy and willing to give up this role. It's an exhausting role, as expert at it as it is, and comfortable with the role as it is. It acknowledges that it also it would. This is true of other parts as well. They've expressed they actually want to do the opposite of what they're actually doing.
Right.
So this one wants, to literally, amp up, not attenuate. It wants me to smell the flowers more than I ever did. It wants me to see the vibrancy of embodied life and be able to feel the energy of that all. And it wants to be my companion in that process. So it wants to, it wants to help self and this embodied being experience an amplified version from what it has been. A more true version.
Yeah.
But it really, the caveat being that self really can demonstrate safety in that.
Okay. Does that feel, do you have clarity about what that looks like?
Well, self is currently reassuring and asking what else can I do except to show up and let you be aware that I am here. I'm here for you. I'm here for the entire system. And self is expressing that its goal is to allow full expression and to be able to receive life fully, and that it can handle that.
How does it respond to that?
It's more of a, I hope so. I see you self. I feel your strength and your integrity.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you talk about allowing full expression, can you elaborate on what that means in this context? Or when you're speaking with this part about that, does that mean I want to put all my exiles on display for the public, or is there some other kind of specific context for what that or how that would look?
So it's not per se tagged into the exiles.
Mhm.
It's more, but of course they're governors, so it is related to them. It's being able to feel life, not have the dullness, not have the pulling back on the reins or the entanglement of nets or the harsh thickness of a oyster shell.
Mhm.
It's sitting in life.
Okay.
Excuse me. No need for all these protectors.
Mhm. Yeah. I wonder if it would be helpful to distinguish between your internal work and any external work. So, for example, when you're sitting down to feel into emotions and allowing the expression of the emotion to self, versus however you interact with the rest of life, the external stuff. I wonder if that would help to, to just distinguish for this part and to, let it know what your intentions are in that regard. Does that make any sense?
So basically, if I heard you correctly, it's about delineating what self is involved or in the process of expressing these emotions,
Right.
and communicating that.
And again, the context in which you're talking about expressing the emotions or feeling life. When I hear that, what comes up for me is kind of like my previous question of, what does that mean? Just going public with, here's how I feel, and I'm gonna scream when I want to scream and cry when I want to cry, no matter who's in the room, or does expressing and feeling emotions, is that more in the context of I'm just trying to do this a solo meditation for now, and I want to get self in touch with exiles and other parts. And I think that could be I can imagine protectors seeing those as two very different modes and having different responses.
Okay, thanks for that clarity. That helped me understand the question better.
Mm-hmm.
So it's certainly there's no self doesn't have any desire to just run around, expressing emotions out loud.
Yeah,
that's not the goal or in any way the agenda.
Yeah.
The goal is to know the emotions.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
That's the purpose.
Yeah. Okay. And so as you're stating that, does this part still have that feeling of needing to protect, just in that context of self getting to know emotions? Is it concerned about that being overwhelming or you needing protection in that context?
No, it immediately answers no. It's clear to this part that when self is engaged with these emotions, that it is truly fine. Self has no difficulty managing the experience of the emotion.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry if I sidetracked just a little. I was.
Oh, that's good. That was helpful. It helped
making some
me.
Assumptions.
No, it was a good angle to come at it. Thank you for that.
Yeah, because it had talked about needing a consistent demonstration of self.
Yeah. And I'm asking it, what does it mean? Because if it can see that self can handle these emotions and wants to, like self is inviting these up, self is feeling invigorated by the experience of emotions because it's had, it's been kind of locked away and blended in with parts and protections and unable to feel the beauty of emotions. And so I'm asking it, you can see self as emerging and really relishing these experiences of emotions because it has been shut off from them. So, self is kind of prodding part around. So what is the concern? If you can see that, what more consistent demonstration is required for you to feel okay? And its response in its very simple way is, I can see that you are able and enjoying even the discovery and expression of emotions. But I know times when you just weren't there.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And that feels fair. I think self is acknowledging that.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, I get that. Fair enough. And saying, I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there. And that you had to work so hard. And encouraging it to trust,
Yeah.
It's interesting within these systems and these parts because the parts are so wounded. So the exiles are raw. The protectors are clearly there working. I mean, it's an amazing system. Like, it's just, I'm awestruck by it. But they're also wounded.
Right.
And it's getting them, even when they see self, to move slightly off that pivot point of the wound.
Yeah.
To kind of be able to start to let it go. With trust. And it's only with trust that's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're seeing the same thing. Although I might have trouble with the language, communicating that from where I am, but yeah. In this conversation from the start, you talked about kind of allowing these emotions to come up and it's okay, I can handle it. I want to feel it. And you have this part saying, well, sometimes self just isn't there. And it was kind of the first question I had is self present to be with these parts? And keeping in mind, self's presence involves compassion and curiosity and creativity and connection. And if we're asking protectors to stand down and it's merely so that we can feel the other emotions, that might be like feel them with or without self, and what I'm hearing this part say is, yeah, there's wounded parts and they can only, it only feels safe if there's trust there, if there's a relationship there. That's more than just letting them out of the box to feel it. Does that make sense? Kind of.
It does. Yeah. It's the connectedness.
Yeah.
It's self actually genuinely connecting.
Right.
that's where the trust is. And this part is saying, hey, you haven't been there. I haven't been connected to you. I haven't even seen you.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen you now, and I see and feel confident what you're, expressing is real.
Yeah.
But I'm still wounded by the fact that we weren't connected.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
weren't there.
Yeah.
And I think connectivity is a big thing. I think we saw that. It was the last time we spoke, I think, with the net.
Mm-hmm.
And that at some very visual image precognitive place, there was that net that was both messy, like I think I referred to it as a tangled fisherman's net.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then there was the kaleidoscope, untangled, beautiful part of it. And somehow right now that image is coming to me when we discuss self and connectedness.
Mm-hmm.
And that the parts are longing for that kaleidoscope version
Mm-hmm.
of connectedness.
Yeah.
And that it's actually that connectedness that it yearns for, that kind of healthy, beautiful, creative,
Warm.
expressive piece hasn't been.
Yeah. How's the parts assessment of that connection just right now with it?
Yeah, it's saying, you've named me dullness, because what I do is I keep because we're not connected, I dull every experience down so that actually getting to the kaleidoscope version of connectedness, self and parts actually can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm literally blocking it. I'm dampering it down.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very fundamental kind of part of the system from the very beginning.
Yeah. Well, it had said that it wants to see more of a demonstration of self. And so I was trying to understand better its baseline, or like how it thinks you're doing in this moment as you've been with it.
So it's saying in this moment, it feels self, it's aware of self.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It can see that instances that self has taken on, a less dimmed down version, and it's not a problem. But it's again leaning back onto this connectedness. It's all well, fine, and good in this moment that self feels this way, but self has been absent, unconnected.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm asking it, what can I do to demonstrate? I'm here.
What does that look like for it?
And it's leaning back into the word consistency. That it's not an occasional appearance of self.
Right.
That self is obvious and present. I don't have to go look for it. I don't have to wonder where you've gone or if you're there. That your presence is ever growing. And that's fair. I mean, that is the process that I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
It's expressing just a genuine desire to work with self as it becomes enlivened
Mm-hmm.
and ever present within the system.
Mm-hmm.
Like it genuinely wants to give up its role.
Are there any more kind of specifics or action steps that it or you are wanting to offer around how that might look?
So there is a conversation that's the seeing is we need to be together. We just need to be aware of each other and demonstrating that we are connected, not removed from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not necessarily fully resolved here in this moment.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Self is fine with that. Self understands that. And the part, although very desirous to be able to give this role up, is just saying, look, I have to be honest. It just is going to take some time.
Mm.
And is saying, you need to come back. We need to have conversations. We need to kind of seeing is doing, work on this together.
Mm-hmm.
So self is saying, okay, let's come back to this. Let's meet again.
Yeah. I know that one of the parts that may have been blocking that was kind of a frustration about this dullness.
Yeah.
Is there more to negotiate with that part, or does that feel? Does the frustration have any more it wants to say, or does that feel like it will come up and block this connection in the future?
Frustration is so now present, and there seems to be nothing blocking a conversation with the frustration.
Mm-hmm.
It's saying that it's, like the third leg of the stool. It has no need to have heightened frustration when things are in connection and in conversation with self.
Yeah.
But that hasn't been the case. So frustration has been floating in high level because of that.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. And it looks like, in just this conversation that we've been having, that these parts are really responsive to your presence.
Mm-hmm.
Like it all adds up to me. They're saying, when you're not around, we got to do what we're doing. And when you are, how happy they are to negotiate with you and to show up and show themselves.
Yeah, it's an interesting point in this process because I agree with you. My parts are really, really happy to meet with self and be with self. Like there's very little resistance in it. In fact, I hardly feel any resistance. I feel hesitation. I feel, can we trust you? Or a lack of connectedness because of the lack of connectedness, a bit of distrust. But there's no resistance to it. They're very anxious to be with self and to let self take the lead.
Yeah.
And so I assume that's a process in and of itself.
Yeah. Yeah, if they haven't had that relationship or that trust for however long. I don't know, thinking how long it takes to build trust with a external person, especially if it hasn't felt strong for so long. But this, of course, can be way quicker, way more efficient.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm getting this visual of a clustering of all these protectors.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like my terracotta army, they're
Mm-hmm.
all upright and ready to go. And they'd be too happy to stand down.
Yeah.
And self is, I don't know if self is not kind of strong enough as an energy at the moment, or where this shift happens, but it's very much in this place where these parts are all coming forward. There's no resistance to self. They're all happy to be around self.
Mm-hmm.
The exiles, probably have a lot of connected stuff still in them, but I don't feel any resistance anywhere.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm not really, maybe you can provide some this maybe in future sessions.
Yeah, it all sounds like good news to me. I guess the question is, when you try to do this on your own tomorrow, what parts you anticipate, or what it will take to get to this same place.
It seems at the moment there's this constellation, as I said, of these protectors.
Mm-hmm.
And they're genuinely wanting to have attention.
Yeah.
And they're genuinely wanting to unburden.
Mm-hmm.
And that is accompanied by these emotions and sensations of emotions that haven't been able to be part of my embodied experience.
Yeah.
And that seems right now to be the system's kind of process.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of adventure of emotions that are tapping into these protectors as this large group of protectors.
Yeah.
In your experience, is it going back to the exiles, or or is it? I don't know. I'm just curious about it. It's such a clear picture to me of what's going on. Not where it's going, but what's going on.
Yeah. What's the question?
So, in a constellation like this, is it just focusing on what comes up? So, like this time it was the protector, the dullness, or is it moving more towards the exiles, which they're protecting, or?
Yeah, I think you're right on track in that. I get the feeling that when you talked about allowing emotions to come up, some of that, some of those are kind of exiled emotions, and a protector of dullness says, "No, we don't want to do a whole lot of that," and so we have gone with the part that showed up and said, hold on. So that puts us in the right place. You also said that these parts, they recognize you, they are responding to you, and they mentioned wanting attention. So that again just tells me that you're in the right place of being with protective parts and understanding them. And when one of them says it needs more consistent demonstration of self, this is doing that. And you can check it out with the part. That's another reason why I was asking, is this doing that? How does this part, experience your demonstration of self in this moment? But if it's saying, yeah, this is what I like to see, then you keep doing that as much as these protective parts want.
Okay. I can't remember in the past when we've gone to an exile how we got there. Like whether it was because of a discussion, around a protector and self, or whether that's kind of where I'm at. I just don't know if I don't tend to try to focus on protectors or exiles or whatever. I try to just kind of allow to come up what comes up, but I didn't know if there's a part of me that wonders, do they want more self-direction?
Okay.
So that was kind of where I was pondering.
Yeah. Yeah. About like, should I aim for exiles, for example? Again, it sounds like you're doing it right to me, just as you're doing. And I understand if that's not a very big insight or aha, but that you are starting by listening in to what's coming up, and then going with any part that perhaps wants to block that or has any other input about it.
Yeah, I think it has to just be organic. I just sometimes, a couple of conversations, the exiles were so present, and so and this latest few have been really about these protectors, and I just
I think that's kind of common in that when we're starting to do this work, we are often doing more kind of just throwing darts, and we show up with this basket of protectors and exiles that is, and every time we reach in, we get something different, and then later, it might look more like this, where it is a more methodical and yes, you come to learn that, well, this part just wants more demonstration of self, and it's kind of like, that's the answer. There's and you might reach into that bag and keep coming to that same thing over and over, because we did put out this fire of this part that was jumping up, and we did meet this exile, and then later the work might get more just kind of stable, predictable, dare I say boring. I wouldn't say boring, but I know that there are parts in me, and that there, those parts can come up too, where it's like, oh, but I wanted to to go to these big places, and I can kind of have this more measured approach.
Yeah, I feel, I don't feel like I need to force anything. Right. And I do feel like this group of kind of, they're all protectors in one way or another, but they're also kind of related to each other. They seem to want to express at the moment. And so I'm just, there's just always this within me, well, if you all want to express, do we need to talk to the exile that you're all, arranging yourselves around? They haven't said that. So maybe they just want to be heard.
Yeah.
That's fine too.
Another just perspective that has come with my, work over time is coming to see in my system, often less and less of a distinction between exiles and protectors. Sometimes where, yeah, it's kind of like, well, the practice is listening to parts and parts want to be heard, and I can kind of leave it at that. If they're all welcome, they're all important, they're all good parts. Yeah, I don't have to
craft it in any way.
I don't have to direct it, and it's nice to have the framework and to assume that, well, there's an exile in there somewhere, and I can keep that on the horizon. But yeah, maybe same parts are showing up over and over, and they're asking for the same things over and over. And as long as it doesn't feel like a total dead end, they appreciate your presence and you're learning about them.
I think that's it. I think it's small discoveries. I think it's kind of in the day-to-day, like I said, I'm discovering new emotions that are not new, but they're new in their realization. And I think these parts are part of that process. So, it's just always curious if kind of intellectually, which is always a problem, that, all of this is rooted somehow in these exiles, where are they? Should they not be part of the conversation? But I can see how that may not be necessary, because these parts are very clearly wanting to come forth and express.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's helpful. Thanks for that. It's always helpful to have kind of a process check.
Yeah. And I also could be completely wrong or missing things or not seeing something. So, we can ask others to check in with that process too. Yeah. One of the great things about sharing the calls.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this seems like a logical end point.
Okay. Do these parts have any other requests or from either of us?
The usual request that you remind me of them when we meet again.
Yeah, I've told you a couple times that I would do that, and then I failed to do that. So, for example, today I was, and it was on my mind. I almost brought it up a couple times today. In the end of our last call, we talked about how parts themselves they're asking for openness, and they might be the ones that are interfering in that openness. So we talked about that.
Maybe we can go back to that. Be open next time. Could you make just that might be helpful to start with that.
Okay.
And if it's not right, it won't feel right.
Okay.
That would be great. Well, I wish you safe travels.
Yes, thank you. I'll be in airports and planes for more than 24 hours or so. And Tuesday, I think I'm traveling. So,
well, may it be safe and may it be not too stressful.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll look out for whenever you're opening your next calendar.
Yep, should be within a week, I would say.
Okay, I'll keep an eye out so that I don't miss the opportunity.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you again for making time.
My pleasure. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye, James. Bye.
Bye.
Do you want to help bring more self-energy to the world? If you'd like to participate in calls or help out with this project in any way, I'd love to hear your ideas. Join the Discord server or contact me at james@liveifs.com. A huge thanks to our audio engineer, Yvonne, for your care and diligence in editing the calls. To every caller for your courage in sharing some of your parts. And to anyone out there getting to know their internal system, keep going. Who knows, that might be the most selfless, helpful thing you can do for others, and you're the only one who can do it. If you'd like to see us reach the largest audience, we must please the almighty suggestion algorithms at iTunes and YouTube. And they don't care about the power of IFS. They're looking for likes and shares and comments, and the sooner the better. Follow the links in the show notes right here in your podcast player to make your wishes known. And now, a minute of meditation. Or if you prefer, pull over. You can do it in 60 seconds. Just click one of those links. They're right there, and give us a like or a 5-star rating. It would really help. If you think this project is helping people, you're helping people by sharing it. Thank you.